The journey has started. Past 3 months we have been traveling through North and Central America. From the bustling cities of Mexico to the beaches of Pacific and active volcanoes of Guatemala. Welcome to the second chapter of our travel diary. Here's us. On top of a volcano we climbed in Guatemala. We also climbed 2 more mountains. But how did we get here? About 3 months ago, after we had sold most of our stuff, quit our jobs and packed our backpacks in Finland, we flew from Helsinki to one of the most culturally rich countries in the world, Mexico. Our journey started by spending 4 days in Mexico City, exploring local architecture, tasting all sorts of local food, and getting to know Mexican holiday season traditions. After 4 busy days in the capital, we headed south to the Pacific coastal town Puerto Escondido. A relaxed Mexican surf town with only 30,000 inhabitants was the place where we wanted to spend the Christmas holiday season and reset our minds for the endless adventures to come. We stayed in a small co-living space with amazing people from all around the world. Most of our days were spent by hanging around with our new friends, exploring local nature, and spending every evening watching sunsets at the beach, while the local skydivers were enjoying the warm ocean wind by flying above the town every night at the same time. There was also a small local family-owned sanctuary for lizards where we got to feed the iguanas with the family's kids. Seeing the crocodiles from a meter away was the pinnacle of the whole experience. The year changed to 2024, and it was time to point our sails south to Guatemala. Our Central American journey started from Antigua, the former capital of Guatemala, beautiful and colorful colonial town situated 1,500 meters above sea level and surrounded by 3 majestic volcanoes called Agua, Acatenango, and Fuego, which has been erupting every hour since 2018. Our week in Antigua included getting to know the history of the town by visiting museums, churches, and local street food markets. We also visited a relatively new attraction called Acatenango, a beautiful local handcrafted little hobbit village situated on top of a mountain 10 kilometers from Antigua. Our plan was to finish the week by climbing the Acatenango Volcano before heading to the next destinations in Guatemala. But unfortunately, Emma got sick and we needed to postpone the hike to the future. From Antigua, we headed 100 kilometers northwest to the deepest lake in Central America, Lake Atitlan. Our accommodation was situated in San Pedro, right next to the San Pedro volcano. After Emma's flu, we decided to start getting our bodies used to the hiking real mountains by doing 2-day hikes nearby. First hike was to a mountain called Indian Nose. The name comes from the shape of the mountain, which reminds of an Indian face. Super steep trail and midday heat was a challenge we didn't expect at the bottom, but after 2 hours and 700 meters of elevation gain, we made it to the summit to see the amazing panoramic view of Lake Atitlan. The second hike we embarked on was the first volcano on our list, San Pedro Volcano. Summit at over 3,000 meters and steep 6-kilometer trail with 1,200 meters of elevation gain. We started the hike early in the morning with a guide and 2 other climbers. The ascent to the summit took us a little over 3 hours. And we even got a police escort for the last part of the trail in case of thieves trying to rob us. The views from the summit were even better than from the Indian Nose. 2 volcanoes on the right side and a beautiful panoramic view of a Lake Atitlan. In addition to 2 warm-up hikes, we spent time exploring other towns at Lake Atitlan and got to meet our lovely local furry neighbors. After spending 3 weeks in the mountains, we headed back to Pacific Coast. This time even smaller town with mangrove forests and black volcanic sand beach with relatively good conditions to learn surfing. We rented a surfboard for a few days and tried to get used to the local waves, but with not so good results. The sea was a little bit too aggressive during the daytime for our skills, with snappy waves and very strong currents. Even we didn't become professional surfers, we took everything out of the experience. The whole town had a relaxed vibe with warm people and friendly atmosphere. Besides the surfing, most of our days were spent hanging out the beach, paddleboarding in the mangroves, or eating delicious local food. After weeks of immersing ourselves in the laid-back coastal lifestyle, it was finally time to tackle the much-anticipated Acatenango hike. We said goodbye to the tranquil shores and made our way back to Antigua, where our mountain adventure awaited. It's 7 in the morning in Antigua, and we're about to climb Volcan Acatenango. Bright and early, we and the other hikers gathered in Antigua, buzzing with excitement for the journey ahead. Loaded into rugged minivan, we bounced along the winding roads, the anticipation building with each passing kilometer. Arriving at the base of Acatenango, we were met with the sight of the towering peak disappearing behind the steep slopes of the mountain.
We don't talk English, we talk Spanish.
With our backpacks packed, boots laced tight, after some breakfast, we set off the dusty trail, our minds fully set for the challenge. The ascent was steep and challenging, the thin air leaving us gasping for breath as we climbed higher and higher. Also, the midday heat gave us even more challenge, especially at the first part of the climb. The higher we got, the view started to open up above clouds, seeing the distant peaks of another volcanoes in the area. 5 hours from the start, we reached the base camp. A beautiful cabin nestled on the slopes of Acatenango with a perfect view to Volcan Fuego. We set our camp and prepared to witness the sunset view of erupting Fuego. When the darkness fell, the group gathered around campfire for some dinner, hot chocolate and marshmallows, with a little taste of what we would experience during the night. We woke up every hour to a massive rumbling noises when the Fuego started erupting, with lighting the whole mountain view with lava with the tones of red like the biggest firework in the world. The next morning came all too soon. The promise of a sunrise summit giving us the energy to wake up and get ready for the climb. With headlamps guiding our way, we embarked on the final push to the summit. The path was steep and treacherous in the pre-dawn darkness. And then, as if on cue, the first rays of sunlight painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, illuminating the world below in a breathtaking panorama. As we stood on top of Acatenango at the 3,960 meters, the world spread out before us in all its majesty. In that moment, as we watched the sunrise and Fuego's fiery eruptions, we knew that this was a journey we would never forget. Next, it was time to head all the way back down to the base of the mountain. Same steep and dusty trail felt nice and easy during the first hour, but the ascent the day before and only few hours of discontinuous sleep started to add weight to our shoulders. With blisters in our feet and all of our stuff covered in dust, we finally reached the start of the trail. All tired but still extremely happy. As we exchanged hugs and high fives, came the feeling that we had not only conquered the mountain, but also ourselves by giving us more confidence for the higher mountains to come. Our journey in Guatemala had been a bit slow-paced this far, and after conquering Acatenango, we wanted to add some more momentum to the rest of the time in the country. Only one day after coming down the mountain, we headed east to explore the greenery and lushness Guatemala also has to offer. We went so deep from civilization, we even had to change from a minibus to a 4x4 truck to get to our next destination, Semuc Champey. Semuc Champey is a natural wonder deep in the Green Mountain Range, with caves and rivers that go underground, filling the turquoise pools at the bottom of a steep valley. We stayed in a popular gringos hostel right next to the national park and had 2 days to do all kinds of activities and recover from the Acatenango hike. We had only one more place to go in Guatemala before continuing our journey to the next country. That place was Tikal, the World Heritage Site with Mayan ruins, temples and lush jungle with a lot of wild animals. So, we took another 8-hour bus ride from Semuc Champey to Flores, 40 kilometers from Tikal. Immediately next day from our arrival to Flores, we headed to Tikal National Park early in the morning. We took a guided tour to get all important information and insights of the Mayan history in the area.
Pyramids, Tikal. It's in all these sites are in every episode of Morgan Freeman. The name of that documentary is The History of God. The History of God. Whenever you see the archaeological site, the Jaguar Temple is in the center. So most of temple they turn around temple 1.
We visited all the main sites in the park and climbed the largest temples to get the panoramic jungle views of the area. The view from the largest temple was the place where we witnessed a familiar scenery from early Star Wars movie. The amount of wild animals in the park was astonishing. Monkeys, coatis, toucans, falcons and much more. We even got to rub elbows with a friendly coati family. After visiting Tikal, we had still 2 days in Flores, and we decided to take everything out of the time in the area And the next day we headed to another Mayan site called Jaxa. 25 kilometers southeast from Tikal, we found a small and quiet park with a lot less people and even more animals. The temples and structures in Jaxa weren't as massive as in Tikal, but we enjoyed the smaller and more quiet park almost more than we did Tikal. Seeing the sun setting behind the jungle lake from on top of Mayan Pyramid in a calm, silent evening was the perfect way to end our 2-month Guatemalan adventure. Until the next one, good night.